I'm your host, Shane Johnson. And with us this morning, Curt Macysyn. Curt is the president of Enterprise Public Affairs. Thank you, Curt, for joining the Morning Route podcast this morning.
Great to be on, Shane. A little bit of a role reversal for me, but
It,
I welcome the challenge.
it is. We're going to have fun with this, Curt. I'm going to just kind of drop this one in here. It came up, I think, the other day. We were on a call, or maybe it was last week, but the Sunshine Protection Act. Bill being proposed, I think it's Senator Cruz this time around, where I think before it was Marco Rubio,
Yeah.
maybe a few years back that was proposing this, but obviously it has to do with making daylight savings time permanent, maybe. Anything you want to share with that that would maybe, again, have an impact on our industry?
This is an interesting concept because you mentioned correctly that Senator Rubio had brought it up in a previous Congress. And I think it was 4 years ago. Um, and we brought it up at our government relations committee meeting, and there wasn't kind of widespread attention to it. And it was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's the thing. I'm not so sure it's going to affect us. And then it comes up this time, and people are like, no, we're doing studies on the impact of these time clock changes
Mhm.
and what that has on pickup and drop off times for the students, which ultimately, we have to be concerned, is there a safety impact?
Right.
And it's interesting. So we're taking a longer look at this now to see if it's something that will support. I think there is, at least I got the sense that we might be in a position to support it this time. The only hang up I have, and I mentioned it on the GR call, was that if states can opt out, then that can prove difficult. So right now,
Mhm.
um, Hawaii and Arizona opt out of the daylight savings time, standard
Mhm.
time switch. Um, and I just think there's probably value to, if we're going to do it, then everybody should just be on the same, schedule.
Right.
Um, but like I said, I think there's a notion that we could support it this time, and that's based on studies that show that the change in, I guess, in biorhythms that come with these 2 year occurrences
Yeah.
of changing the clock uh, is not worth it. So the juice isn't worth the squeeze,
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you willing to tip your hand at all on which you prefer?
I don't
Next,
know,
next
but
question. Next
how,
question.
how about you first?
I not probably, I do lean to the standard time. I'm not a proponent. I don't like the daylight savings time. I think it is man-made. It's manufactured time versus just real time, which I think is good for our health, our bodies. It's what really is intended for us to live our daily lives versus manufacturing a time. And I like the sunlight in the morning. I don't need it to be, I don't need to be 10 p.m. and it's still daylight out. Just, so that's where I stand with it. So yeah, but I
Yeah,
am interested though to see the studies. I do want to see the studies.
yeah,
It is important to me. I think to you as well in the school bus world. What does it mean for our industry and for our kids, right? Where's the safety implication for students being outside from one time compared to the other? So I am interested if we can get those numbers uh, to evaluate it that way.
yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna have to check the text of the bill whether they lean one way or another. My sense is, at least with the Rubio bill, was going to make daylight savings time
Permanent.
permanent. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think I saw or heard golf courses in Florida. There's 50% more. Someone could check me on this, but I think it was 40% more revenue that they gained by this extra hour of daylight. So that's their primary focus is the golf
So the
course down in
twilight
Florida.
golfers, huh, are going to
Yeah,
drive this.
yeah. So that's their drive down there. So, but everyone's going to have their thing. Another piece in it too is you think about states. I think Indiana might be one where they're split with the time zone, and there's probably a
Yeah.
few other states, maybe Kansas or something like that. So it'd be interesting too what happens maybe with states that are time zone split. What happens with that? That's kind of interesting as well. How that might shake out.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
Florida is one of those states where the panhandle is in
yeah,
central time. So it is interesting in the respect of the polls close in a portion of Florida, yet they're open
yeah.
another hour in the
That
on the panhandle of
Yeah,
Florida. So yeah,
Bush Gore, right? Remember that Bush Gore, the hanging chads, yeah, the
yeah.
Panhandle, yeah, yeah, all that, yeah. That
Well,
was,
it's interesting you mentioned that too because I mean that was a fiasco back in the day. So
oof,
you're talking about the 2000 election, hanging chads in Broward County and this and that. And I
yeah,
remember listening to that whole Supreme Court case, like having that on and listening to
yeah,
it. And it was interesting because the Democrats and Al Gore just wanted to cherry pick Broward County. And really,
yeah,
what they said is like if you're going to do a recount, you got to do a recount everywhere. You can't just cherry pick Broward County because you were,
mm,
and that was really the nexus of that court case. But they learned from it. So if you look at elections now, Florida is is a state that reports quickly right after the polls are done.
yeah,
There is no 3 a.m. ballot drop in the major cities in Florida.
yeah.
And we won't go into that, but
Hey, look at I found,
yeah,
yeah, 3 a.m. I found another
yeah.
bag of
But
ballots,
but
yeah,
but you watch that in Florida, it's they report boom. Here are the
yeah,
results.
yeah. They need to send people from Arizona to Florida to get some training, I think, because yeah, Arizona's a mess when it comes to election reporting. So yeah, parts of California as well, but we won't talk about California today. But we could be here for a while talking about that,
Yeah.
but yeah, no. With NSTA too, Curt, I probably want to spend a few minutes on again why, if someone's not a member of NSTA, why they should maybe really consider being a member of NSTA and what the benefit is at a national level. How does that then trickle down to you, so to speak, in a state level? But I know there's lots of different committees with NSTA. There's the GRs, you said government relations, business development committee, safety committee, awards, finance committee, MST, the manufacturer supplies technology committee's membership. If you were maybe just a minute or two on the different committees again and how that works at the NSTA level and the benefit maybe back to you as a contractor, that maybe even again maybe trickles down to a state level.
Yeah, I mean the one that people often talk about is the government relations / advocacy part of it because it's where you'll see really tangible results. And I go back to I'm going back here, Shane, so forgive
Yeah,
me.
you going back to the yellow pages again?
No,
Okay,
I'm going back to the pandemic.
okay,
Um, and when we got the CERTS Act passed,
mm,
and there were grants for private school bus operators who were caught in the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, that was really um, it was really a dark time. People didn't know what the future was, and to get that kind of relief really, I think, kept a lot of operators open there. I look at our brethren on the coach side, and so
mm,
many coach operators went out of business, after the pandemic.
right,
And
yeah,
fortunately, we student transportation didn't see as much of that, thankfully, knock wood. But that was,
mhm,
start. So that is like, I think that is like the gold standard of advocacy is like when you can, and like we don't want to go through that. We don't want to have to go through that. But we were there. We were in a situation, and because we had an association, we could band together and we could be part of that. So in essence, a
yeah,
lot of it that I emphasize is like there's not going to be always a dollar for dollar exchange, but it is an insurance policy of sorts that if things like that come, that there's somebody in your corner fighting for the survival of a lot of businesses that
Yeah.
were in the throes of, the economic downturn at that time. I mean, the other things we do are, I think, helpful in terms of making your operation better. So things we talk about with the under the hood, or, we don't, we're not doing the PSA on illegal school bus passing for this reason, but a byproduct of doing that is also going to be insurance costs
Right.
for operators. Like if we can narrow down the amount of this illegal passing, it's just better for everybody, and that's going to also translate into insurance premiums at some point. And we know the hard market that's
Yeah.
out there now, so you always have to be cognizant of things like that. So there
Yeah.
are those opportunities for like uh, I don't want to call them dollar for dollar, but
Hmm.
financial impact of belonging to NSTA.
Yeah.
But then there's the soft cost. So it is like you talked about going to a conference and engaging with other operators of the same size or smaller or bigger, and just that exchange of information, how you do
Yeah.
things versus how they do things. Hey, I have this new computer program. It's a way you can vet, like, hey, I just got a pitch from XYZ vendor.
Hmm.
What you've been using it for a while. What do you think of it?
Yep.
To me, it's just like all of that, and then it's additionally the things you talked about with the committee. So one thing that we're doing with the business development committee is we're trying to explain the benefits of outsourcing student transportation services to anybody who will listen, honestly. But lately, we've been at COSBA, Consortium of State School Boards Associations in Atlanta, talking about the benefits of outsourcing student transportation services. And we had a lot of great questions down there. We had a lot of engagement from people who I think are thinking about this concept, and that was good dialogue. So it's just so multifaceted, and this
Hmm.
uh, in that you get out of it what you put into it. So if you're just
Yeah.
about paying a douche check every year and kind of not participating, yeah, you're probably not going to see great value. But the more
Right.
you engage, the more value you see on any
Yeah.
number of levels that we do.
Hmm.
And I think it's really important that and you mentioned this earlier, like when you onboarded with NSTA, we have large operators, we have mid-sized operators, we have smaller operators, we have really small operators.
Hmm.
We have people 10 buses and under,
Yep.
5 buses. So there's really something for everyone in that setup. And so I think it's important that people just don't look at it strictly from a complete
Right.
dollars and cents standpoint, because we just don't know where nobody could have imagined the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we just don't know when the next thing will happen,
Right.
and how we can leverage that, how we can leverage our association to support the industry when it really needs it.
Right. And it is, and I agree with you. Again, this is my opinion, but I think if you took a poll with NSTA members, probably would be number one for that would come out on top is just the networking is so invaluable. I probably learned more about electric school buses the first time I'm ever probably saying this to anybody, of what to do and what not to do and really how it works from Corey Muirhead, a contractor up in New York. So when I hear something, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I remember Corey said something about this, right? I go back in my memory Rolodex. So, that just happened because of organic conversations that Corey and I have had in the past at a conference. Or like I said, with John Benish, doing some biofuel at Cook, Illinois. Myself and a couple of my other team members went down to visit with John and see some of his operation. And he had him and some of his team members, just let us see at his facilities, talk about biofuel with him. again, that would never happen without being in NSTA and having that network, right? So again, just those things that can happen, that you hear. Sean McGlinchey, from Pennsylvania, Sean's been instrumental in a couple of questions that I had, like, hey, what are you guys doing in Pennsylvania and why? Because I heard a thing or two in Minnesota, right? I'm like, wait a minute. I remember Sean talking about this once, right? And he was helpful and sent me a bill that Pennsylvania was introducing, and just kind of looking at that. So again, just that going to the conference, like you said, you can pay your dues and never, I guess, come to a conference or be a part, and you're not going to see the return, right, on it. So I always say, if you're going to do this, get involved, get on a committee, check some of the committees out, see where you fall, see where your wheelhouse is, but join and become active, get involved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's what we try to do and there's always that fear factor, right? Like when
Yeah.
you join, especially when you join a new organization, like, am
Yeah.
I going to be accepted? But I can tell you, having worked at a number of associations, this group is incredibly welcoming. And so when you come to an event as a new person, you're not going to feel like an outcast.
Yeah. No, I can vouch for that 100%. I know we're pushing time. Kurt, are you good to keep going? Cause I got some other things to throw past you.
Yeah,
Are you good? Okay. Awesome.
absolutely.
All right, great. Let's I do want to hit this because it's really important. School bus rodeo. Can you share with our listeners what's happened? I know that kind of got some fresh air breathed into it here last year. Maybe what that looks like this year, and how states, any states, can get involved with that.
Yeah. So we had a 4-year hiatus. We revived the safety competition last year, which was the 50th edition of the School Bus Driver International Safety Competition. We had 53 drivers. We have a permanent facility at the Hayes CISD, just
Awesome.
below Austin, Texas. And it's a great facility. The event, after 4 years, we had to dust it off a little bit, but
Mhm.
I think it was a great event. This year and in future years, I think there's going to be an emphasis to um, ensure that we get more participants in it. And what's that look like? Because I think there's difficulty in terms of states hosting, whether a state or a regional competition, and cost and volunteers and a number of different things. So we have a permanent site. We plan on hosting this moving forward. We'd like to see more states jump into the pool in terms of having their own competition. We had a vigorous debate on the safety competition call about eligibility, what that's going to look like moving forward, because we see the gap in terms of the number of states that are offering it. It really is, honestly, at this point, Shane, like 50-50. There are like 25 states that offer, 25 states who
Okay.
don't. So there's either a big opportunity out there or uh, a cause for concern, actually, that if states aren't going to pick up on that. So I think there was, like anything else, some of the feedback we get is once COVID shut it down, it was tough to ramp it back up. And then people have retired. And I think they
Yeah.
just need that next generation of people,
Yeah.
to carry the baton in terms of putting together these competitions,
Right.
is what we're going to need. So if your state interested in hosting, we'd love to connect with you. You can reach out to me. But we're committed to hosting an international competition, but we're only going to be able to do that, for the foreseeable future if we
Yeah.
get enough competitors.
The states involved, right? So at the end of the podcast here, we'll get your contact information out to folks. So again, if someone out there is hearing this and they want to participate, we'll make sure that they connect with you. So yeah, thanks for that. And when is the competition typically held?
It's June 28th
Okay.
and 29th. Like I said,
Okay.
at Hayes Consolidated District. We're at the Austin Marriott downtown. We got a nice location. It's about a 30-40 minute drive down to the competition site on Sunday. But I'll tell you, the enthusiasm there, Shane, last year was incredible. Like, we had registration was like going to open at 1, and we had people there at 12 o'clock ready to chomping at
ready
the
to go.
bit, ready to get their badge and ready to get
Right.
going.
Well,
So it was nice to see. We just want more people.
awesome. Well, whatever we can do to help facilitate that, we'll do that. And I know here our podcast, Kathy, I'm sure is going to have contact information posted on here and the information for the rodeo too, so people will be able to see that on the podcast here as well. So let's really switch gears here. I think we got some really exciting news that we're about to share with folks. Talking about kind of states getting involved, state associations, all that good stuff. Um, Again, full disclosure, uh, we're for Palmer Bus Service. We're an operator here in Minnesota. I'm on the Minnesota School Bus Operators Association board as well. And before Curt and I hopped on this podcast together, he and I were on another call together, a state association board call. And so, Curt, I'd like to give you an opportunity. I'll kind of drum roll here. Maybe Kathy can even fit that in the podcast as well. Kind of drum roll, but a new title, maybe a new role that's adjacent to the NSTA and the executive director of NSTA, but something that you've just recently added.
Yes, so proud to announce that Enterprise Public Affairs is taking over management of Minnesota School Bus Operators Association. I'm going to be executive director of MSBOA, and yeah, it's a great opportunity. Love the people up in Minnesota. Um, you're one of the highly contracted states out there, and we got to keep as I mentioned to people when they say, "Well, I belong to the state, I belong to the national," and it's like you got to belong to both
Yeah,
because there's such key work done at the state level as well as the national level. So I'm
yeah,
happy to support a state with a lot of great individual contractors out there with a lot of great energy. And if I can add something through my experience of managing association and herding cats, like you're saying, happy to do it, want to
yeah,
encourage it, and so we're excited about the opportunity,
yeah,
engaging with the people, and it's been a whirlwind, but it's one of those things where you say, hey, the structure is there. It's just that it's kind of like the fine tuning
yeah,
that needs to go on, and so happy to get the sleeves rolled up and work with you and Catherine and Bethany and the board and the
yeah.
professionals up there. So it's gonna be a great ride.
Yeah, no, it is. And like I said, I know I can speak for us here at MSBOA. We are very excited about having yourself, your staff, enterprise come on board here and to, really lead in that professional, as we talked about on the call before, and Bethany expressed that to the rest of us on the board, just that professional leadership. And so we are really, really excited about that. The bones are all here, as you said. Bethany, get before Bethany, Garrett, Regan, they really carried a lot of water here. But we're not professionals. We're not executive directors. So again, we're really excited to have you come on board. Looking forward to the summer conference. Maybe as much as you can. I know you can't talk about a lot of things yet, but that's okay. Talk about the new role. Maybe like initially, like what does the transition look like? What is your primary focus going to be kind of right out of the chute?
Yeah, I mean there are probably multiple areas of focus. I would say one is kind of getting the systems in place. So that's like your database, your website, that kind of thing, and seeing who like like granular things like who's renewed and who's not. Just being able to
Right.
get a handle, on that because in this day and age, or I guess in any day and age, people don't want to be taken for granted. So you see a lot of people drop off in terms of association membership or participation because they're not asked, and it's like, and maybe they read into that they're not valued, which normally isn't the case. But you just don't want people, the membership base to die on the vine or go unattended. So it's kind of you get to those granular things. You ramp up the communication. Hey, there's somebody here. Here's what we're doing. Here's how we're doing it. And then you'd be surprised, Shane, after that happens. the level of suggestions that come in. Hey, uh, have we ever considered doing this or have we ever
Mhm.
considered doing that? People don't want to make those suggestions when they, I guess, sense that they're not going to be carried out. And so I think just by taking care of the basics, and I'm going to date myself again, but I'm going to go back to, so like when I was um, director of constituent relations for Speaker Chuck Hardwick in the New Jersey Assembly, we created really like the first database of
Okay.
operations. So what happened was people would write in, and I'm really dating myself. I don't even know if you remember this computer system, but you ever Wang computers?
I
No.
don't, Kurt. No, no. I'm not a
So
computer guy though either, so it
okay,
doesn't mean
okay. So
anything.
anyway, Wang, maybe some people remember it, but state New Jersey had a big old contract with Wang Computers back in the day. So that was like the, I guess, around the early '90s, and they've gone by the wayside since then. I'll have to look them up, but I don't think they're any longer in existence or
No.
got acquired by any. But they had this thing, so we would work with them, and so we just created the field, and essentially when people would write into the speaker, we would capture that information. So it's you know John D. Smith, 123 Main Street, Anytown, New Jersey, 08609, and we put in extra fields like what were they writing about? Were they writing about property taxes? Were they writing
Okay.
about education? Like what were they writing? So we had
Hmm.
those fields in there, and then anytime the speaker had an initiative about something, then we could proactively
Go
reach out
back.
to those individuals and say, "Hey, the speaker is proposing
Hmm.
HCR 22 that will, uh, cap the uh, percentage increase in property taxes." So it was really interesting. Um, so I go back with databases a long
Okay.
time, and it's like, uh, and in my original computer science classes, there was one thing, and it tells you what sticks with you, like from your college days, and that was, took computer science course. It was like garbage in, garbage out, and it's
Right.
still true. And so whatever is in there and however it was put in is what you're carrying forward. And that's why you have to have attention to detail when it
Yep.
comes to the membership and databases, because what you're doing is setting the foundation for everything else you're doing later on, and it allows you to work smarter, not harder.
Yep.
Um, so a lot of that is just dealing with like I said, the database is just a key pillar of association management. So we're going to do that. I think another strength I bring to the table is the level of connections I have. So we're going to be able to get some really good speakers to the various, conferences.
Right.
And, and I think the one thing that drew me to it is the level of support I'll have, with the board and the
Yep.
other operators in Minnesota, and that you can't underscore enough, because
Yeah.
there's only um, so much I can do
Yep.
if other folks aren't around and available, and and so you've got a wide variety of really solid operators up there with great skill sets
Yep.
in different areas, which I think is great, and a lot of experience. And you have a nice lobbyist, you have a good attorney. So there's just
Yep.
a lot of things in place, Dane.
Yeah, a lot of positives for sure. Like you said, earlier, just that the bones are all here. And so again, just looking for that professional management leadership that's going to come from you and your company. So again, we're very, very excited. Looking forward to the summer conference coming up here as well. One thing I do want to say, because this, and you just said it again a few minutes ago, but I heard you say it a couple of months ago too, is that added value. And whether it's MSVOA or NSTA, um, that is so true, right? That added value, like, if someone's paying their dues, what are they getting in return for that? What kind of support is that company getting? But I do want to say this though too, because it's something that, sometimes aggravates me a little bit, gets under my skin a little bit, is, well, what are you doing? Right? I get that you just pay your due. You can't. This is just my opinion. You can't just pay your dues, right? You have to give them beyond that too, which sometimes is your time, right? Fight again the committee to belong to and become active on that committee. Um, I think sometimes people like, oh, I'll just pay my dues and then let someone else do all the work. Well, who's the someone else? It has to
Right.
be somebody. So again, I just always like to push people to great. I'm wonderful. I'm so glad that you're part of the organization. Now what, right? Get involved, give back. I do think we all have that duty and obligation to give back to our industry. So, but I appreciate you saying that because it is true that added value that you have to have that added value.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's do this here. We'll kind of start getting on our off ramp here, closing out. Um, I'd like for you to make the pitch. We talked about this a little bit throughout our conversation, but how to become a member of NSTA and or MSBOA and why. Maybe paint that picture of why to become a member.
Yeah, absolutely. So with respect to NSTA, you can always reach out to us at info@yellowbuses.org. And then at MSBOA, it's info@msboa.com. With any inquiries you have, but essentially, it's what we talked about. It's giving of yourself to create a landscape, and perhaps I shouldn't just say create a landscape, but maintain a landscape that will allow private contracting to thrive nationally and in Minnesota. And that's the biggest thing because there are always opportunities where legislators who may be well intentioned, but haven't gotten the necessary background, drop bills in that are harmful to the industry only out of ignorance, not out of malice. And we always have to guard against that. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of what we do, and so much of what me being able to go to a hill visit with somebody like you is that I can talk about the bill numbers and I can talk about the committee assignments and I can talk about that stuff. And you guys talk about operations because those people need to learn them and why certain things are feasible and why certain things aren't feasible, like what's realistic and what's not. And I will say this, my experience is that we needed more of that, and it's no fault of the industry of student
Sure.
transportation in general, but we needed more of that with the clean school bus program.
Mhm.
What we did is we flooded the market with $5 billion of grant money, and there were a lot of other non-transportation operation groups out there saying, "Give us more money, give us more money, give us more money," and the foundation wasn't set, the infrastructure wasn't
Right.
set, and as I tell
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
the delivery of the electric bus is the easy part. That's the easy
Mm.
part. But it's the rest of it, including the engagement with the utilities, the electric utilities, that's the unknown. That's the new creation to this ecosystem. And people
Right.
think like if you've ever worked with an electric utility, they're a behemoth.
Cool.
They are not easy. No, even the best case scenario, not easy to deal with. And that's not a criticism. That's just a statement of fact.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And and so there wasn't enough of like, hey, how can we make this successful? The focus was just too much on the dollars,
Right.
and and I think you'll see if the impacts of that program are not as uh, consistent as we think they will be. I think that's a large part of the reason. So, like I said, I think it's critical. Um, and people think it's trite when we get up here and we say, "Oh, it's about survival." In some cases, it is because
Mm-hmm.
um, if you have a landscape that you can operate, your business in that is sound and reasonable, there are all these external forces that are out there that want to throw a monkey wrench into that
Right.
at times. And like I said, sometimes it's not ill intended, but
Mhm.
whether it's ill intended or not, the net effect is the same. And so you got to be on the front lines. You got to combat it. You got to be able to talk reasonably with your representatives and tell them, because student transportation is the largest mass transit system in the United States. It's done successfully. And the safety statistics bear this out. The only newspaper articles that come out are ones that don't say like, "Hey, ABC contractor delivered their students safely and on time."
Right.
We're waiting
Doesn't
for those
happen.
stories. They're not going to come.
Nope, not happening.
But the story that comes out is, child got left on a bus, or bus was an hour late
Yeah.
at drop off. Parents were concerned, and so, but thankfully, knock wood, Jane, those stories are few and far between. And but they always engender a reaction. So, and typically an overreaction.
Yeah.
So those if something occurs and your local legislator gets wind of it, I want them to be able to call you and say, "Hey, Shane, I just saw this in the paper. How did this happen? And is there something I can do?"
Right. Yeah.
And then that kind of heads off any kind of uh, initiative that's going to be harmful to the industry.
Yeah. And I think the word that pops in my head as you were kind of walking us through that was education. I think so many times we find ourselves, I mean this in a positive way, being able to educate certain stakeholders, right, about our industry and sharing our stories of the why and the what and the how that it takes to operate as we do. So many times it's just negative, right? And that's what they hear about us. Oh, school bus company, like late, or my neighbor, they might be a lawmaker and their neighbor tells them a story that, their kid, didn't get picked up by the bus, right? So there's a negative. But I think the more that we can get in front of them, talk to them, educate them about our industry, again, just the why becoming a member, NSTA, MSBOA, or whatever state organization that you belong to or should belong to, is really, really important, because they don't know what they don't know. And it's our job to help educate them, right? So to get in front of them, have them hear our voice about our industry. So yeah, thank you for your leadership and your team at NSTA and now MSBOA for helping to facilitate a lot of times those conversations. So one thing too, I do want to share, and I want to make sure that you highlight this too. And we joked about this at the beginning, and we'll do the scorecard here at the end. That you have a podcast as well. I want to make sure people are aware of that. It's NSTA The Bus Stop. So anything you want to quickly share about that?
Yeah, we released that podcast, and we started it in August of 2019, is what I should say. And it's been an interesting evolution. But the one thing that I think, and I'm going to ask you this question after I'm done answering this, is the one thing that I think didn't surprise me, but I didn't know the answer to this, so I was kind of feeling in the dark, right?
Mm-hmm.
Were we going to have enough content to sustain this every week?
Okay.
And it's like, man, we come across so many people, and now we're fortunate enough people reach out to us to get on there, and I've interviewed so many different people, and it's been really interesting. Like this, we get to know them a little bit. We
Mm-hmm.
get to talk about their company, but so many different, really interesting individuals, all involved in student transportation, and it's been a great ride. But if you
Yeah.
asked me in 2019, like, was this going to be sustainable? I I would be like, I don't know. I can't give you an answer to that. And
Right.
it's not um it's not been that difficult to say, hey, I ran into this person, they'd be an interesting
Mm-hmm.
podcast guest. Let's
Right.
have them on. And I think that's been a little bit of a surprise, but welcome for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would agree with that. I'm cheating. I do one every 2 weeks. So maybe, but I agree with you. Is there enough to talk about, right? And everything you just said, I will echo. I've actually had people now reaching out to me and going, "Hey, I'd be willing to come on. I'd love to come on." So very surprising in that. So I think there is enough there to continue to have the conversations. I got some interesting guests that I'm looking at coming on. Some superintendents want to come on, some school district
Oh, that'd be great.
superintendents. Um, I think I'm trying to facilitate too, and I think I have a couple. We're just going to lock down some dates and some lawmakers as well to come on. So yeah, just
You need help on
it,
that one, grilling them. I'm in.
I'll let you know. We could, yeah, we
You
could,
can
we
play
could
good
certainly
cop,
do
bad
that.
cop on that one.
Yeah. So it's been a pleasant surprise.
Yeah,
The one, I don't mean this in a negative, right? But sometimes you'll hear something like, "Oh, you should have done this, or you should have said that." And I'll be like, "Then you go do your own podcast, right?" Like, I'm just like you are. I'm just doing this. It's out of fun. I have a great boss, Jenna Fromm. When I went to her with this crazy idea, she's like, "Absolutely, right?" Because
yeah,
so she's so supportive. There's nothing behind this other than having conversations, right? To highlight our industry, to highlight other contractors, to highlight vendors, talk about our industry. That's the only thing about this. I still have my day job that I need to do. So, but it's been fun. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy the conversations thus far, and we'll see what happens. Right? It's kind of like where you're at. You're what, 5, 6 years strong at the
yeah.
bus stop. So, that's been very successful. I listen to it. I always look forward to the guest and what's going to happen in your conversation as well. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had Jenna on not too long ago in
Yep.
Women's History Month in March.
Yep.
She's a fantastic guest because the one thing I can tell you, and not that I want to say that like we're professionals at
No,
this, but
she's going to listen to this now, so be careful.
okay.
She's going to. Okay.
Uh, so, and like I said, it's not like this is our day job or
Right.
whatever, but it was such a genuine conversation.
Yeah.
Like, what she was saying, and not that other people aren't that, but it was like she's the real article. So
Mhm.
kudos to Jen. It was interesting. It flowed nicely. It wasn't wasn't forced. It wasn't awkward. So she was a great guest on the bus stop.
Yeah. 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 She, like I said, she was. Yeah. It was a great conversation you guys had, and all yours are too. I take something from every guest that you have on. I really do. It's like, oh, I didn't know that. But like when you had Rachel on, it's like, oh, I didn't know that. Right. So again, it's always fun just to listen to, but then there's some education within it, which is obviously important as well. So yeah, great job on the bus stop podcast. So future success there. I know that'll happen. So let's end here. How can people contact you once again, Curt? And we'll flash it up as well on the video.
Okay, absolutely. So if you want to contact us at NSTA, you can reach out to info@yellowbuses.org or by phone 703-684-3200. And on the MSBOA end, you can reach us at info@msboa.com. That one's a .com.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for that. All right. Final question. This is how we end the morning route podcast with every guest. This will be the toughest question you got here in the last 1 hour, 25 minutes that we're on here so far, Curt. If you had the morning route's all about coffee, as we know in the school bus world. Routes don't leave until the drivers had 1, 2, maybe 3 cups of coffee before they start the morning route. But if you had an opportunity to sit down with one person, doesn't matter who it is, what time frame of history it is, and you could share 1 cup of coffee and have a conversation with them, who would that person?
Oh, you're going to limit me to just one person,
Just
huh?
one. That's it,
Oh
man.
boy.
Just one.
I would have to say, and this evolves over time. Like, if you ask me this, like, probably if you asked me
Tomorrow,
this,
tomorrow it could change.
no, not that, but if you asked me like 10 years ago, I
Okay.
might have said Ronald Reagan, but
Okay.
as time goes on. But what I'm going to say to you is, it would be George Washington.
Okay.
And I just, man, the more I've been getting into, the Revolutionary War and being the first president, I just find that whole period of time fascinating. And
Mm,
we talk about a lot, like how politics is today, and it's not in a great place. I don't want to make it seem like it's in a great place, but the United States has been through these cycles before. Like
yeah.
they were, at the Revolutionary War period, like there were a lot of people that put their own personal finances aside, their own personal safety and security, to make this country, what it turned into. So I just find that period of time, very interesting. That the setup was very different. The second place vote getter became vice president. So like, what was
Hmm.
that like? It was like
Yeah.
your rival now became your second in charge.
Right.
Just so many fascinating things, but just as a strategist in the Revolutionary War, and then he was the one who set the precedent of 2 terms in office.
Yep.
And why he did that, what were his considerations,
Right.
that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I have to go with George Washington.
That would probably be an excellent pick. That would be an excellent conversation for sure. As a history buff myself, I love history. Yeah, that would be. Well, maybe I'll let you have 2 cups of coffee, if not a whole coffee pot, for that one. So that would be. It would be fascinating. I assume have you been out to Mount Vernon?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's fascinating.
Every
Yeah.
time I have an opportunity, and we'll have to think about that in Boston, Shane, because you have the Kennedy Library
Hmm.
up there too. But like when we were Austin, Texas, the LBJ Library, so different places. Some of them are a little harder than others. One of the great presidents that I like is Dwight David Eisenhower,
Yeah.
but his is in Abilene, Kansas. So I got to figure out
A little bit
how
harder to get
how
to.
I'm going to make it over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've
It's
been to
funny you say. Yeah.
Nixon. I've been to Nixon in California. I think it's in Yorba Linda, and Reagan in Simi Valley, California, Reagan Library. Breathtaking views there.
Yeah.
A full size Air Force One in the museum. If you're out there,
Very
regardless of your
cool.
political stripes, go in. Has a piece of the Berlin Wall in there. Really interesting.
Yeah, cool stuff. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, like you said, put aside political differences, the history is amazing to see and read. So yeah, yeah, we'll try to maybe hook up there in Boston at the NSTA conference and maybe see if we can get over there to the Kennedy Library. So we'll see what happens. Awesome. Curt, this has been great. It's been fantastic, very educational. I hope our listeners have had a great time as well. And I thank you for your time as well. And we'll do it again.
Yep. No, appreciate it, Shane. Always good to be with you.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Curt. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Stay up to date with the podcast by following us on social media. Don't forget to subscribe to the Morning Route Podcast YouTube channel.